actually you can find yourself through the messiness of the journey. Matt Tait would know. As a former attorney turned serial entrepreneur, Matt's path has been anything but linear. From practicing law to leading tech companies, launching a restaurant marketing venture, and now building Decimal, a fast-growing bookkeeping and tax service for small businesses, his career has been a testament to taking risks, embracing failure, and redefining success. Matt reminds us that success isn't about avoiding failure. It's about learning who you are and showing up as that person every single day. I'm Lindsay Chepkema, and this is Actually I Can. Hi, Matt.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm glad to be talking with you. This is roles reversing because I was on your show recently after the first million. It's very good. And now I was like, okay, but you have to come do mine. And so here we are.
I appreciate it.
So we met a very, very long time ago, like multiple lives ago. I was consulting and doing, actually, weirdly, something very similar to what I'm doing now, like some content strategy, some brand stuff. You were like 2 or 3 companies ago, and right? So, and since then, it's been really fun because we've kind of been leading these parallel lives, like doing, okay, now on to the next thing and on to the next thing and growing our careers and trying new things and leading businesses. And I'm really glad that we've stayed in touch because we've been able to kind of swap stories and do things like this. But for context, tell me a little bit about your path because it is unconventional, which is one of the many reasons I wanted to have you here.
Well, I appreciate that. And I appreciate you having me on today. I think you and I are the perfect example of like the opposite of what kids are taught. Because you're kind of taught like you're going to have a career, you're going to build in that career, you're going to grow in that career, and maybe someday you'll lead in that career. And for me, it's been absolutely nothing like that. As you know, I started out my career, I'm a recovering attorney. And from there, I got into the tech scene. I then ran 2 businesses for somebody else. I then decided I wanted to do anything but that. So I started a restaurant marketing company. And I'm happy to talk anybody out of restaurant marketing. Failed miserably. It was one of those great ideas, bad companies. But ultimately, it led me to me. And it led me to Decimal, which is bookkeeping and tax for small businesses, which 20 years ago, if you told me I'd be super passionate about that, I would have thought you were nuts. But it's been fun and it's grown super fast. So we really, for me, it's a great outlet to just help people.
Yeah.
And I enjoy that.
Yeah. And that's what it's about. I think ultimately, when you do make that big long loop and you try all the things and you come back, like you said, it led you to you. And in this way that makes no sense, but perfect sense all at the same time. So
it makes no sense looking forward. It makes perfect sense looking back.
Yeah. Yes. Hindsight is pretty cool like that. I can connect some dots in some very weird ways too.
Right.
And that's why we're here. Like I want to hear the stories along the way. So you skipped over, you went through some things very, very quickly. So attorney to tech, as one does.
That's normal.
Yeah, totally normal. To running businesses for other people, to running your own in restaurant, like tech for restaurants, as any attorney would, right? Clearly.
That makes sense.
And now with Decimal. So how'd that happen?
So the number one, I think the starting point that helps to tie all the threads together is I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs and always knew that I wanted to run my own business. And for me, law school and being a lawyer was a way to kind of gather a good foundation from which I could grow. And my wife would tell you the best thing about being a lawyer in law school was I met her in law school. And so that made it a great decision.
Of course, absolutely.
But I always knew I wasn't going to practice for very long. And when an opportunity presented itself to get into a fast-growing tech company, it was the ultimate swinging the pendulum from like a boring legal law firm career. There are a lot of people that do it amazingly well. My wife is a partner at a big law firm. Like it's perfect for her. It was not for me. And I was looking for more excitement. I was looking to break away from that. I was looking to change careers. And I had a great opportunity to do that at a company that was called BidPal. They were super fast growing in Indianapolis, and they helped nonprofits. And so
how long after law school was that? Was that like immediately? Was it a very long time?
I practiced for like 3.5 years.
Okay. Yeah. So long enough to be like, I did the thing.
I mean, look, I am still a practicing attorney technically. I just wouldn't take legal advice from myself. So nor should you. But it's like one of those careers that you don't realize when you get into it. It's a lifelong affliction, and they make you pay dues for your entire life. So I still get my continuing legal education stuff, but I got to practice enough to see that and experience it enough to truly know that it wasn't a career path for me.
Okay. Got it. Okay. So then opportunity in tech, that makes it make more sense now. You're like, oh, cool. Exciting.
Check that box. Did it?
Check that box. How long did you do that? And what were you doing there?
So BidPal at the time was all outside sales. They would start a marketplace like Chicago, and they'd hire somebody in Chicago, and that person would sell Chicago nonprofits. And they'd always had this idea that they could sell via inside sales, and doing it at the time a lot over the phone, and over what the equivalent of Zoom was back in the day. And I'm old enough to say that. Oh man,
was this like Cisco or something?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Oh yeah.
It was not fun.
Grainy and unreliable. Oh man.
It was. So, it existed.
So you went from practicing attorney to inside sales.
And I'd never done that. It was honestly one of those weird things where I looked at the CEO at the time I met through friends, through networking, and through just some great people. And Scott Weber was his name. And I was like, hey, if you have any like random thing you've never been able to try, but you've always wanted to, I'll take a low salary, high commission and do it. And that was inside sales. And now it's how they sell. So it grew very quickly into the outside of the New York marketplace. It grew very quickly into the number 2 revenue generating thing for them. And then my thing was I want to build a team around it, and had the chance with some people to co-build a team of inside sales people, and did that for about 2 years.
Okay. Wow. So the way you're telling the story, it doesn't sound like there's a whole lot of friction there. I mean, like but I imagine there was, like, were there people or voices saying like, but you have this law degree, you're an attorney, you're going to go be an inside sales rep for this tech company? Like, or was it like, yeah, no, that's fine. This seemed right because you were brought up by entrepreneurs. Like,
so there was a big difference. There's a gap here. You're right. You hit the nail on the head. I always felt like I could do it, but they tell you when you go to law school, the great thing about having a legal degree is everybody will value it. That's fundamentally untrue. Everybody with a legal degree will value it, but the business marketplace doesn't. And so wanting to make that change was a lot of trying to talk people into, I can do it, I can try it, I can, all of this stuff. I had to take a step back in my career. I went from making a lot of money as an associate at a big firm to not making much money. We'll go back to my wife. She's a saint. She's been through all of this craziness with me. But that was a big thing. And that was a pride hit too, of like, I am taking a step back in my career to hopefully take the next 3 forward faster and to be happier. And I had to talk them into this and say like, look, your risk is super low here. Your upside is super high. Like and now being a CEO a couple of times, I get like, those are really great opportunities. Low risk, high upside. I'll do that every day.
Yep.
And so that's how that kind of came to fruition. And it was also kind of part of what became about 10-year journey for me of understanding and being confident in who I was as a person, and being confident internally as well as being okay with being that externally. Because I think so much of how I grew up and so much of how I was I felt a way that I knew other people didn't. And so you fake it to kind of get there. But if you fake it too long, it erodes at who you are. And that caused a lot of friction in me personally.
Oh man. Okay. So that you said that kind of started that journey for you, like that experience.
Yeah. I mean, I think even when you know you're going to do things differently, you assume it's always going to be linear.
Yeah.
You never assume that you're going to have to step back to go forward. And so having to do that the first time is really hard. It gets easier the second time. And by the third time, you just realize it's normal.
Mm-hmm.
And that I think is a tough thing to just grow up and mature into.
Yeah. Okay. So that sounds like a pretty core learning, making that jump and going into, so from there, you said you led some companies for other people and ultimately went on your own all the while. And it sounds like in the background, like you're getting, like we were just talking about, you're comfortable in who you are, you're learning in who you are. How does how you're feeling inside and how you're growing inside come across on the outside? How do you communicate that or not? What do you hold back? Like this is stuff. And one of the things that I love about you and what you talk about on your show is a lot of this. It's like that, those inner conversations that you're having with yourself, how you're growing because you're doing different things, how you're running into roadblocks in yourself. And as you're changing, it's like, how do you communicate to the rest of the world these changes and come across with confidence that that you see what's ahead and that you're like the direction that you're going. So like get into that with me. Like how did that, like kind of what was going on inside of Matt's mind versus like as you're going through and you're running these different companies and trying new things and growing and changing and learning. And
there are a couple of things that kind of come to mind in your question. Number one is it took me way too long to realize that I needed to have and visibly enumerate what my core values as a leader and as a person were. And I didn't realize at the time that those were kind of building in me. And I didn't do it intentionally. It wasn't until, so skip ahead a little bit, that restaurant marketing tech. We raised some money. It started out going pretty well, and then it failed. Mm-hmm. And for somebody like me, I had never experienced like truly big failure ever before that. And I actually took some time to hit rock bottom and to really look around and say, who do I want to be? Like, who am I? Mm-hmm. And that was the first time that I had actually intentionally sat down and said, what is the core of who I am and who I want to be? And what do I need to find that I don't have now? Number one. And number two was an understanding that changes. Who we are as people changes, and that's okay. Like we live in this society today where it's like you're told to be one side or the other, and you can't change. That's not functionally possible. And so you're putting people in a position to always feel less than because you're telling them they can't ever adapt and change and evolve. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that to me was that learning experience. And when I looked back and I said, you know what? Like going from law to tech to then running somebody else's company, that was a legal tech. It was kind of a combination of my two careers. That told me that a fundamental part of who I was is I like taking calculated risks. Like that is who I am. I love doing those things, and that's okay. I've learned along the way to talk about it with my wife and family beforehand and to do it in an intentional process. And, some of those other like important stuff. Yeah. I learned by running somebody else's company that do the right thing is a fundamental core value for me, is something you actually have to enumerate. You and I have been in the business world long enough to know that not everybody actually does that.
Right. Which is shocking. Nuts. When you assume that everybody at least wants to do the right thing, it hits you like a ton of bricks. And it's actually hard to believe. It's like, no, that's not real. And then like it can really mess with your head. And sometimes you think like, well, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm missing something here. But no, it is quite shocking how you have to vocalize like, I know it's an important thing to me to do the right thing and to do what's right, not what's easy. That was a hard learning for me too.
I mean, it's made me into what I would call an optimistic realist. Like I really do want to believe everybody is good and wants to do good, but realistically, that's not true.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. The other thing is like I stopped letting it affect me. That was another big thing. Like you and I are having this conversation on a very fascinating day.
Yeah.
Part of my learning was that I've decided in my life that things that are entirely outside of my control, I am not going to allow to affect my emotional state. Mm-hmm. And that's a hard thing to do, but that's part of the process of me being mentally and physically healthy is just saying, hey, some things suck. That's fine. I'm going to be me and do the best I can and help lead the people, help lead my kids, my company, my team, the best way that I know how. And that's how I'm going to affect society. Mm-hmm. That's how I'm going to handle the core of who I am because I can only control me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so all of that, like getting to what you were saying, like this is when really building the foundation of me became a big thing and truly doing that in an intentional way and then letting that change and evolve has also been a big part of kind of where I've gone.
Do you think you could have had those learnings and those realizations and really understood yourself and those decisions to like act in certain ways and kind of protect those boundaries and live out your values and even understand what your values are? Do you think that there would have been any way to get there without going through what you went through?
I think for a lot of other people, yes. I am not an easy person, so no, not for me. I needed to hit rock bottom. I needed to go through all of that stuff. Like, number one, I needed to go through it all. And then because I wasn't observing and seeing during that. Like I wasn't intentionally being the best version of myself during that whole time. I just kind of went and like dove. I was that guy that dove out of an airplane, built the parachute on the way down.
Yeah.
Now I pack the chute, hop into the plane and jump out.
Yeah.
And I needed to hit rock bottom to get that. I needed that growth point. As bad as it is, it was awesome for me.
Yeah. I can relate. Did you think at the time when you were going and doing the things and achieving and just one thing to the next, you said you had to go through it to understand like this best version of yourself. Did you think that was the best version of yourself? Did you think that this achievement and trying or were you aware at the time that there was something different, something better for you?
Late at night, I knew there was something better. But I was very good at hiding from myself. You know, wow. I was a cocky, overconfident asshole. Sorry for the French. Let's beep that out.
You're not the first. You won't be the last.
Yeah. But a lot of me was really hiding who I was from myself, which meant I was hiding it from my family. I was hiding it from my job, from my network. What was lucky for me is there were enough people that saw that version of me. And so that when I was trying to find it, they helped. Mm-hmm. And that's also part of, even through that process, I've always tried to do the right thing. I've always tried to help people. And when you pay it forward, at some point, karma pays it back.
Yeah. Do you think that other people saw in you what you wanted to see in yourself, but didn't? Like, do you think other people already saw it?
I think they did. I do.
Okay.
I mean, in our position, when you raise money and you lose everybody's money, you assume those people will never give you money again. When I came around and had the opportunity with Decimal today to ask a few of those people for money, very quickly gave it. They didn't ask questions. They just gave it immediately. And they were like, this is going to be it. And thus far, it looks like they'll be right.
Which is awesome. Congratulations.
Well, long way to go. No congrats.
I believe in you.
But we're on the right track.
Yeah. Okay. So that's So kind of like other people where you're actually, I can, is what it sounds like. Like you were pushing and going and doing all the things. You faltered. You had your face down in the arena moments, like my good friend Brene Brown via Theodore Roosevelt. I'm looking at it right here.
Teddy's my favorite historical figure. It's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, I have his quote right there. Not the critic who counts. But so you had your like face down in the arena, getting your ass kicked like moment. And that's what kind of led you to actually start to embrace who you actually are. And it sounds like turn to some of the people who were ready to put their hand out like and help you up and be like, you ready? Like, you ready to do this time? Like, what was that like for you? Like, how have you come into yourself? Like, what does that look like as a founder specifically? Like for Matt, but also, I mean, you and I know what it's like to be a founder. How has that like tension existed?
Ultimately, the number one, I think, core part of me that I haven't mentioned that I think is a value of me as a human being that I learned and that people helped me to find is I'm a fighter. I will always get back up. You watch those Rocky movies when he should never get back up. I'm the idiot who keeps getting back up, and that will always be me.
Yeah.
I will never stay down. And I will relook at what the situation is and figure out what getting back up means. Yeah, but I will always get back up. Mm-hmm. And that's a core part of, I think it's a core part of a lot of entrepreneurs is at some point you look and you're like, fine, hit me. I don't care. I'm going to get back up. Hit me again. Great. Mm-hmm. I'm going to get back up. And I think that's a big part of it. Here's the other thing that I just decided at some point I was going to, and I did it right before the pandemic, so it's perfect timing. I decided I was going to completely rip the veil between my home mat, my family mat, and my work mat. And I was going to let all of my emotions and all of my ambitions and all of my joys and fears and sadness pervade every bit of it. I was sick of compartmentalizing too much. I was just going to be one person and share that whole person with everything. Mm-hmm. And because I think that's part of what tore me up through my process was so much like, when company was failing, I didn't want my wife to see that I was failing, and I didn't want my employees to see that it was hard. And you know what? I just decided, fuck that. I'm just going to be me. And now how I do that, how I portray that, I can control.
Yeah.
But being open and honest and transparent is another core function of who I am as a person. And I think it helped me lead through the pandemic. It's helped me come out through the ups and downs of Decimal. Everybody thinks it's been an amazing path. No, it's been a knife fight. But we've gotten through it as a team. I've got an amazing group of people that have helped and that have worked hard and been a huge, amazing part of it. I can't do it alone. I'm not going to try.
Yeah.
And that I think was a huge learning in this process was I'm done compartmentalizing. I'm just going to be me. I walked into a acquisition we did with a multi-billion-dollar company, KPMG. And I had a hoodie on and I had my hat backwards and their suit and ties and vests and all that crap. And I was just like, you guys are here. You asked me to be here. I'm coming as me. And it worked out great. Like we still have a great relationship. It was an awesome process. But I was me throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So, and some people can just do that naturally. I have a couple of friends who have walked me through some pretty big transitions, and they were just born that way. And I think that we can borrow from their confidence as we learn to embrace that in ourselves. But how has that decision to, like, I guess kind of in actually I can speak, like, actually, I can be myself. Actually, I can be one person in all of these different situations, and I can lead and I can love and I can live in this way that is wholly and fully me. How how is that? I mean, it sounds like it's going well from a business perspective. Like, how's it going? I mean, you're a few years into this. When was this? Before the pandemic. So you're, coming up on 5 years into this way of life. Like, how's it going professionally, personally?
I feel good about it.
Yeah.
I love coming to work. I love the challenges. I love the people. I love these conversations. Like, these are not, I would not have been able to like authentically and really have this conversation 6 years ago.
Yeah.
I want to be able to have these. The other thing that I've really truly learned, and I think you've learned too, and it's one of the reasons why we do our content, we do our podcasts, we do this stuff, is there are a lot of people that feel the way we have at our worst moments and want to feel the way we do at our best moments.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay. And it's okay to start to normalize that.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think was keeping you from doing this sooner? Like, what were the voices in your head or around you telling you that this wasn't an option until it, until you had,
scared.
I mean, why? Yeah. Scared of what?
I was scared that people wouldn't like the real me. I was scared I wouldn't like the real me. I was scared I didn't know who the real me was. Like, I hadn't spent the time figuring out who I truly wanted that person to be. I just kind of let life roll through. And I was scared. I was scared about what change would look like. I was scared about what failure might feel like. I was scared of a lot of unknowns. Mm-hmm. And that's why I needed to hit rock bottom, because I needed to rip away all of those trappings and just figure it all out. And it was a huge blessing and a really good thing for me.
Yeah. And I, quite often, the tables are turned on something I'm going to throw out there. Like, I get asked, like, as a woman, as a female founder, and I'm actually going to flip that and say, like, the conversation that we're having is happening more and more among men, and being really open about your feelings and who you are, and learning about yourself, and being one person in every area of your life. What has your experience been with that? Not that you actually know what your experience would be like any other way, but like, talk to me a little bit about that. Like, what it's been to be a man embracing like who you are and being really open and authentic and vulnerable in how you're leading.
Feels good for me. I like it. I mean, I grew up in a very much of a rub dirt on it household. And granted, you have kids same way I do. There's some times when you do just
there's some rub dirt on it
moments and say like rub dirt on it.
Yeah.
But not every time. I took that too literally. I think it's important. Like, we are all the sum of all of our parts. I want to be the best version of me. And quite frankly, I want to be the best version of me for my kids and my family first. Work is going to come and go. The legacy of who I am is going to live on through them. And I've got 3 amazing kids, and I don't care how successful or unsuccessful I am. 100 years from now, they're just going to remember my kids and their kids. No one's going to care about decimal. I'm okay with that. I want to be the best version for me. I want them to be the best version for them. Yeah. And we are all a combination of emotions and physical health and all of that stuff. Like, these are all intentional things. And I also think we become better leaders when we focus on ourselves. Like, that was one of the greatest parts of the pandemic for me, and my wife and I did the same thing, where it was like, look, being selfish can build a core foundation to be unselfish with a big part of your life.
Say that again.
Like, truly being selfish in a part of your life, your mental, physical health, who you are, allows you to be unselfish. You have to fill your cup up to give it to other people. And I think too often we forget that. And I think it's extremely important. And part of filling my cup up is this, is these conversations, is talking about this. If our conversation unlocks a thought for one person, perfect. Yeah. If it unlocks it for 0, I felt good about it. So fuck it.
Yeah. working for us. We like it.
Yeah.
Okay. So on that note, if it unlocks something for somebody else, like the whole point of the show is selfishly, I get to talk to my friends and meet new ones and learn more about your story and your I can moments. But I don't want others to go through some of the really tough times that I went through. I don't want them to have to hit rock bottom in the same way that you're talking about. How do you hope and think that other founders in particular can learn from this and kind of have a cheat code to getting to where you are?
If you can be more intentional through the process of figuring out your core identity and your core values, it will make the valleys less. It'll make the fall shorter. And you're going to hit, like, being an entrepreneur, even the most successful ones fail all the time. You're going to fail. Life is a combination of failures with some successes. But if you know who you are, you'll get through it a lot better than if you don't.
Yeah. It's not a fluffy thing. It's not soft skills. In fact, it's the furthest thing from it. Like, yeah. I think it's been seen as soft woo-woo stuff, getting to know yourself for way too long. And I couldn't agree more.
Somebody asked me, they said, what is the most important thing I can do to be a successful entrepreneur? I said, look in the mirror and really get to know that person.
I love it. Okay. Perfect place to leave it. Where can people find more of Matt Tait?
Well, we have the After the First Million podcast, which, like you said, we talk a lot about kind of the messy middle of growing a business, what that means. And then just follow me on LinkedIn.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Matt. You are always such a joy to talk to, and I'm glad that we got to share one of our conversations here because you're right. This is you. This is Matt. This is what you get. So thank you for sharing it, and thank you for being so authentically yourself. You are helping more than I think you realize.
Well, Lindsay, I appreciate you having me, and I really always enjoy the conversation.
Thanks for joining me for another episode of Actually, I Can. And did you know that actually you can subscribe so that you never miss an episode? Yep, do it now. And you can also go to actuallyican.show and watch any episode anytime. Thanks for joining.